So, get this, Ensign Blorp chuckled, sliding into the seat across from his fellow crew member in the mess hall of the Galactic Federation's flagship, the inevitable Conquest. I just overheard the most ridiculous thing in the officers' lounge. Lieutenant Squish raised an eyebrow, or what passed for an eyebrow on her gelatinous form. Oh, do tell. It's been ages since we've had any good gossip around here. Blorp leaned in, his antennae twitching with excitement. Apparently, the reason we haven't invaded that backwater planet Earth yet isn't because of their military might or advanced technology. Well, obviously, Squish scoffed, her body rippling with amusement. Have you seen their pitiful excuse for spaceships? I've seen more advanced technology in a child's science fair project. Exactly, Blorp exclaimed, barely containing his laughter. But here's the kicker: the top brass is terrified of their oceans. Squish's form jiggled in what could only be described as hysterical laughter. Their oceans? What? Are they afraid of getting wet? Did someone forget to pack their space swimwear? Blorp wiped a tear from one of his eye stalks. No, it's even better. They're convinced there are monsters in the depths. Can you believe it? The mighty Galactic Federation, conquerors of 1,000 worlds, brought to a standstill by some overgrown fish. As the two alien crew members continued their mirthful conversation, little did they know that their dismissive attitude toward Earth's oceans would soon be put to the test. For in the vast, unexplored depths of our planet's seas, ancient beings stirred, awakened by the presence of extraterrestrial threats in orbit above. Our story begins in earnest as the inevitable Conquest receives orders to conduct a preliminary scouting mission of Earth's oceans, setting in motion a chain of events that would forever change the course of galactic history. Captain Zixnorp stood on the bridge of his scout ship, the damp Discoverer, as it hovered above the Pacific Ocean. His tentacles twitched nervously as he gazed down at the endless expanse of blue beneath them. "Remind me again why we're doing this," he grumbled to his second-in-command, Lieutenant Fizzpop. Fizzpop sighed, her bioluminescent spots flickering in annoyance. "Because, sir, High Command insists we need concrete evidence before they'll believe the ridiculous notion that Earth's oceans are too dangerous to invade." Right, Zixnorp muttered. "And they couldn't have sent, I don't know, literally any other ship in the fleet." "Well," Sir Fizzpop replied with a hint of sarcasm, "I believe their exact words were, 'Send the most expendable ship we've got. Congratulations on your prestigious selection.'" Zixnorp's eye stalks drooped. "Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Well, let's get this over with. Ensign Gurgle, begin the descent. And for the love of the cosmic jellyfish, make sure our shields are at maximum strength. I don't want so much as a droplet of Earth water touching our hull." As the damp Discoverer began its descent towards the ocean's surface, the crew couldn't help but feel a mixture of excitement and trepidation. After all, how bad could it really be down there? Little did they know, the inhabitants of Earth's oceans had been preparing for this moment for millennia. Deep beneath the waves, an ancient intelligence stirred, ready to defend its watery domain from otherworldly invaders. The scout ship breached the ocean's surface with a splash that would have been comical if the crew weren't so terrified. As they submerged deeper into the darkness, the ship's external lights illuminated a world alien even to these extraterrestrial explorers. "Status report," Captain Zixnorp demanded, his voice quivering only slightly. Lieutenant Fizzpop consulted her instruments. "All systems nominal, sir. No sign of any." "Wait, what's that?" A massive shadow passed in front of the ship, momentarily blocking out all light. The crew held their breath, or whatever passed for breathing in their species, as they waited for the anomaly to appear again. "Probably just a whale," Ensign Gurgle offered helpfully. "I've read about them. Big, but harmless." Captain Zixnorp relaxed slightly. "See? Nothing to worry about. Just some oversized sea mammals. High Command is going to feel pretty silly when we report back that." His words were cut short as something slammed into the side of the ship, sending it spinning through the water. Alarms blared as the crew scrambled to regain control. "What in the name of the cosmic jellyfish was that?" Zixnorp shouted, his tentacles flailing wildly. Before anyone could answer, a deep, otherworldly sound reverberated through the ship. It was unlike anything they had ever heard before, a cross between a whale's song and the battle cry of 1,000 warriors. The external cameras flickered to life, revealing a sight that would haunt the dreams of every crew member for years to come. A colossal creature, easily dwarfing their ship, loomed before them. It had the sleek body of a whale, but with tentacles reminiscent of a giant squid. Bioluminescent patterns danced across its skin, forming intricate symbols that seemed to pulse with ancient power. "Oh, sweet merciful space gods," Fizzpop whispered. It's beautiful and terrifying, but mostly terrifying." The creature regarded the alien ship with eyes that spoke of intelligence far beyond what the invaders had expected to find. Then, with a flick of its massive tail, it propelled itself towards them at impossible speed. Evasive maneuvers, Zixnorp screamed, his usual cool demeanor completely shattered. Ensign Gurgle's fingers, or what passed for fingers in his species, flew over the controls, but it was too late. The creature wrapped its tentacles around the ship, squeezing with enough force to make the hull groan in protest. Sir Fizzpop reported, her voice oddly calm given the circumstances. "I believe we've found the concrete evidence High Command was looking for." Zixnorp shot her a glare that could have melted steel. "Your talent for understatement is truly remarkable, Lieutenant. Now, if you don't mind, perhaps we could focus on not becoming fish food." As if in response to his words, the creature began to drag the ship deeper into the abyss. The pressure alarms wailed as they descended far beyond their safe operating depth. "Send out a distress signal," Zixnorp ordered. Tell them Earth is off limits. The oceans are forbidden. For the love of all that's holy, warn them about the monsters." Fizzpop worked frantically at her console, trying to compose a message that would convey the sheer terror of their situation without sounding like complete lunatics. It wasn't easy. Meanwhile, on the surface, a small fishing boat bobbed gently on the waves. Its sole occupant, a grizzled old sailor named Captain Salty McBeard. Yes, that was his real name, and yes, he was very proud of it, squinted at the spot where he'd seen something unusual break the surface a few minutes ago. "Well, I'll be a barnacle's uncle," he muttered to himself. "Coulda sworn I saw some kind of spaceship round these parts. Must be hitting the grog a bit too hard." He was about to dismiss the whole thing and go back to his fishing when a garbled message crackled through his ancient radio. "KSS is the Galactic Federation scout ship Damp Discoverer. We are under attack by KSS giant sea monster KSS Earth's oceans, a deadly KSS abort invasion." Repeat, abort invasion. Captain Salty McBeard stared at his radio for a long moment, then shrugged and went back to his fishing. "Them alien fellas need to learn to hold their liquor better," he chuckled to himself. Little did the good captain know, but he had just witnessed the beginning of a new era in Earth's history, one where our planet gained a fearsome reputation among the stars, not for its military might or technological advancements, but for the eldritch horrors lurking in its oceans. As news of the Damp Discoverer's fate spread through the Galactic Federation, other alien races began to take notice. Earth, once considered a primitive backwater ripe for conquest, was suddenly the subject of wild speculation and fearful whispers. In a dingy space bar on the outer rim of the galaxy, a group of alien mercenaries huddled around a table, sharing stories of their latest adventures. A grizzled Zorgon bounty hunter named Crack leaned in, his scarred face illuminated by the dim glow of bioluminescent drinks. "You lot hear about what happened to that Federation scout ship," he growled, his voice like gravel in a blender. The Blobbian information broker, named Gloopy, quivered with excitement, nearly spilling her drink. Oh, I heard they were eaten by a giant space whale." Cracksix snorted, a sound not unlike a garbage disposal trying to process a fork. "Space whale? Don't be daft. It was the humans, I tell ya. They've got some kind of secret weapon hidden in their oceans." A synthetroid assassin, designation TX-404, chimed in with its monotone voice. "Illogical. Humans are a pre-FTL species with minimal underwater capabilities. Probability of them possessing technology capable of destroying a Federation ship 0.000000001%. Then how do you explain what happened?" Smarty Circuits Cracks challenged. TX-404's eyes flickered as it processed the question. "Insufficient data. Additional information required." Just then, a hooded figure at the end of the bar spoke up, its voice barely above a whisper. It wasn't technology that destroyed that ship. It was something far older and far more terrifying. The group turned to look at the mysterious stranger. Cracks narrowed his eyes. "And who might you be?" The figure lowered its hood, revealing a face that seemed to shift and change, never quite settling on a single form. "I am a Shimmer, last of the Void Dancers. We were once the guardians of the cosmic depths, keeping watch over the dark places between stars." And I can tell you with certainty that what lurks in Earth's oceans is beyond your comprehension. A hush fell over the bar as everyone leaned in to hear more. The shimmer continued, its voice taking on an eerie, echoing quality. Eons ago, when the universe was young, there were beings of immense power that roamed the cosmic seas. Some say they were the children of dead gods. Others claim they were the living embodiments of entire galaxies. Whatever their origin, they were fierce and terrible to behold. Gloopy. The Blobbian quivered with a mixture of fear and excitement. What happened to them? The shimmer's ever-changing face settled into a grim expression. They were hunted, pursued across the stars by jealous lesser gods and upstart mortal races who coveted their power. In their desperation, they sought refuge on a small, blue world in an unremarkable solar system, a planet that would one day be known as Earth. ATX 404's circuits nearly overloaded as it tried to process this information. Query, how could such beings remain undetected on a populated world? The oceans, the shimmer replied. Earth's seas are vast and deep, with much of their volume still unexplored even by the humans themselves. The cosmic leviathans found sanctuary in the lightless abysses, the crushing depths where no surface dweller could follow. There they slumbered, waiting for the day when they might be needed again. Krax slammed his fist on the table, causing everyone's drinks to jump. Bah, fairy tales and ghost stories. Next, you'll be telling us they ride around on giant seahorses and have tea parties with mermaids. The shimmer fixed Krax with a gaze that seemed to pierce right through him. Mock, if you will, bounty hunter, but consider this: why has no invasion force ever succeeded in conquering Earth? Why do ships that venture too deep into their oceans vanish without a trace? The cosmic leviathans may slumber, but they are not defenseless. They have guardians. Meanwhile, back on Earth, in a top-secret underwater facility that officially didn't exist, and if it did exist, it certainly wasn't located off the coast of New Zealand, wink wink, a group of humans were having a very interesting debriefing session. Admiral Bubble's not her real name, but let's face it, it's way more fun than Admiral Stephanie Hawkins paced back and forth in front of a large screen displaying the wreckage of what was unmistakably an alien spacecraft. Her eyes gleamed with a mixture of excitement and worry behind her thick-rimmed glasses. Ladies and gentlemen, she began, her voice carrying the weight of someone who's seen some serious shit. It appears our aquatic friends have once again successfully repelled an extraterrestrial incursion. While I'm thrilled we didn't have to nuke anyone from orbit, I'm a bit concerned about the escalating property damage. A nerdy-looking scientist with hair that seemed to defy gravity raised his hand. Admiral, are we sure it was the aquatic friends this time? I mean, it could have been a really big shark or something, right? Admiral Bubbles fixed him with a stare that could have frozen lava. Dr. Flippers, unless sharks have suddenly developed the ability to telepathically transmit eldritch horrors directly into the minds of alien invaders, I think we can safely assume it was our scaly pals from the deep. Dr. Flippers gulped audibly and sank lower in his chair. A gruff-looking Navy SEAL, who, for legal reasons, we'll call Sergeant Beef Wellington, spoke up next. Ma'am, don't you think it's time we told the public about them? I mean, how long can we keep covering this up with stories about swamp gas and weather balloons? Admiral Bubbles sighed, rubbing her temples. Sergeant, we've been over this. If we tell the public that the reason we haven't been invaded by aliens is because of ancient, cosmically powerful sea monsters that we've entered into a mutual defense pact with, they'll think we've all gone mad. Plus, can you imagine the paperwork involved in trying to get them officially recognized by the UN? The room fell silent as everyone contemplated the bureaucratic nightmare that would ensue from trying to register Cthulhu-esque beings as Earth's official planetary defense system. Right then, Admiral Bubbles continued, clapping her hands together. Our priority now is to clean up this mess before some overeager marine biologist stumbles upon it and starts asking uncomfortable questions. Dr. Flippers, I want you to come up with a plausible cover story, something involving experimental submarines or underwater volcanoes or whatever it is you eggheads talk about at parties. Dr. Flippers nodded enthusiastically, already scribbling notes about hyper-aggressive giant squid and previously undiscovered underwater currents. Sergeant Beef Wellington, I need you and your team to retrieve any alien technology that might have survived. The last thing we need is some fishing trawler pulling up a piece of faster-than-light engine in their nets. The SEAL nodded grimly, no doubt already planning the most over-the-top way to scuba dive to the wreckage. As for the rest of you, Admiral Bubbles addressed the room at large. We need to prepare for the possibility that this isn't the last we've seen of our would-be invaders. I want contingency plans, people. How do we politely explain to alien races that Earth is off limits without revealing our trump card? A junior officer in the back timidly raised her hand. We could tell them we have space lasers. Admiral Bubbles blinked. Space lasers. The officer nodded, gaining confidence. Yeah, you know, like in the movies. We could say we have this huge network of orbital defense platforms that'll zap any hostile ships out of the sky. There was a moment of silence. Then Admiral Bubbles broke into a wide grin. Ensign. What's your name? Sparkles, Ma-am. Ensign Gloria Sparkles. Well, Ensign Sparkles, that's just crazy enough to work. I like the way you think. Dr. Flippers, add menacing space lasers to your cover story list. As the meeting adjourned and the various members of Earth's secret underwater defense force filed out, Admiral Bubbles couldn't help but chuckle to herself. Who would have thought that humanity's greatest defense against alien invasion would be a combination of eldritch sea monsters and good old-fashioned bullshitting? Meanwhile, light years away, the Galactic Federation was having a crisis of its own. The loss of the damp Discoverer had sent shockwaves through the ranks, and an emergency meeting of the High Council had been called. Supreme Overlord Zizix, who had legally changed his name to include as many ZZs as possible to sound more intimidating, sat at the head of a comically long table, his tentacles drumming impatiently on its surface. Around him, representatives from various alien races fidgeted nervously, each trying to avoid being the one to break the uncomfortable silence. Finally, a brave or foolish Slorbaxian diplomat cleared his throat. Supreme Overlord, perhaps we should reconsider our stance on invading Earth. It seems the risks might outweigh the potential benefits. Zizix's eye stalk swiveled to fix the diplomat with a glare that could have curdled milk in another galaxy. Reconsider? Reconsider? We are the Galactic Federation. We do not reconsider our invasions just because one measly scout ship got eaten by some overgrown fish. A holographic display flickered to life in the center of the table, showing the last transmission from the damp Discoverer. The image of Captain Zixnorb's terrified face filled the screen, his tentacles flailing wildly as he screamed about sea monsters and forbidden oceans. With all due respect, Supreme Overlord, a neutronium being of pure energy, chimed in, its voice sounding like a dubstep remix of a dial-up modem. That doesn't look like an overgrown fish to me. That looks like something out of our species' collective nightmares. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembled aliens. Zizix's skin began to change colors rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation in his species. So what do you propose we do? Just give up. Let those primitive humans keep their watery death trap of a planet. The Xlorbaxian diplomat saw his chance and took it. Not give up, Supreme Overlord. Think of it as a strategic re-evaluation of our galactic priorities. After all, there are plenty of other planets ripe for conquest that don't come with built-in leviathans. Zizix was about to launch into another tirade when his personal assistant, a meek little alien named Blorp, no relation to the Ensign Blorp from earlier. Blorp is a very common name in some parts of the galaxy, scuttled up to him and whispered something in his ear, or what passed for an ear in his species. The Supreme Overlord's expression shifted from rage to confusion to something that might have been fear if anyone had been brave enough to point it out. What do you mean? Earth has space lasers, Blorp gulped audibly. Well, sir. Our long-range scanners have picked up evidence of a massive orbital defense network around Earth. It appears they have the capability to destroy any ship that enters their solar system. The council chamber erupted into chaos. Alien diplomats shouted over each other, some demanding immediate retreat, others calling for an all-out assault to destroy the supposed space lasers. In the midst of it all, Supreme Overlord Zeke sat quietly, his mind racing. After a few moments, he raised one tentacle, and the room fell silent. Fellow members of the Galactic Federation, he began, his voice uncharacteristically subdued. It seems we have grossly underestimated the humans. Not only do they have control over monstrous sea creatures, but they also possess advanced technology we hadn't detected before. Perhaps it is time we considered a different approach. The assembled aliens leaned in, curious to hear what their leader had in mind. I propose, Zizix continued, warming to his theme, That we extend an invitation to Earth to join the Galactic Federation as equals. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Invite humans to join as equals. It was unprecedented. Think about it, Zix pressed on, his eye stalks gleaming with newfound enthusiasm. If we can't beat them, why not join forces? Imagine having those sea monsters and space lasers on our side. As the Council debated this radical new proposal, back on Earth, things were about to get even more interesting. In the deep sea facility, Admiral Bubbles was just settling down with a cup of coffee, or as she liked to call it, liquid sanity, when the alarm started blaring. She sprinted to the control room, spilling hot coffee all over her uniform, but too amped up on adrenaline to care. Status report, she barked as she burst through the doors. Dr. Flippers looked up from his console, his eyes wide with disbelief. Ma'am, you're not going to believe this, but we're receiving a transmission from the Galactic Federation. Admiral Bubbles blinked. The what now? The alien civilization that's been trying to invade us, Dr. Flippers explained. They're asking to open diplomatic relations. For a moment, the only sound in the control room was the steady drip of coffee from Admiral Bubbles' soaked uniform. Then, she threw back her head and laughed. Oh, this is rich. Our big scaly friends scare them off, and now they want to be pals. Put them through, Dr. Flippers. Let's see what they have to say. As the transmission flickered to life on the main screen, revealing the tentacled visage of Supreme Overlord Zix, Admiral Bubbles couldn't help but smile. She had a feeling things were about to get very interesting indeed. Greetings, Earth Representative Zix began, trying to sound as dignified as possible for someone whose face looked like an octopus having a bad hair day. We, the Galactic Federation, extend our warmest salutations and an invitation to join our illustrious alliance of advanced civilizations. Admiral Bubbles raised an eyebrow. That's funny. I could have sworn you were trying to invade us just last week. Had a change of heart, did we? Zix's tentacles writhed uncomfortably. Ah, yes, well. There may have been some misunderstandings. We were merely conducting a routine survey of your planet's defenses. Standard procedure, you understand. Admiral Bubbles nodded, not even trying to hide her smirk. And I suppose our space lasers and ocean full of monsters had nothing to do with this sudden desire for friendship. The alien leader's skin rippled through a series of colors that probably translated to extreme embarrassment in his species. You know about those. Oh, honey, Admiral Bubbles chuckled. We know everything. We're humanity. Knowing things we shouldn't is kind of our speciality. As the two leaders continued their banter, trading thinly veiled threats and backhanded compliments like seasoned diplomats, neither of them noticed the subtle changes taking place in the oceans below. Deep beneath the waves, ancient eyes opened. Colossal forms stirred from their eons-long slumber. The cosmic leviathans, guardians of Earth's oceans, sensed a shift in the balance of power. Their time of hiding was coming to an end. In the Mariana Trench, a being large enough to swallow cities whole uncoiled itself from the ocean floor. Its skin shimmered with bioluminescent patterns that told the story of galaxies long dead. Off the coast of Antarctica, a creature that could have been mistaken for a small continent began to move, ice sheets cracking and falling away as it rose towards the surface. And in the heart of the Atlantic, something stirred that defied description, a mass of tentacles and eyes and impossible geometries that hurt the mind to look upon. They had protected humanity from the shadows for millennia, guiding the course of evolution, subtly influencing the development of civilization. Now, as Earth stood on the brink of joining a galactic community, they knew it was time to reveal themselves not just as defenders, but as partners. As Admiral Bubbles continued her verbal sparring match with Supreme Overlord Zix, a new alert blared through the control room. Dr. Flippers, who had been enjoying the diplomatic showdown with a bucket of popcorn, where did he even get that, nearly choked as he turned to his console. Admiral, he squeaked, his voice an octave higher than usual. We might have a slight situation. Admiral Bubbles held up a hand to pause her conversation with Zix. What is it, Flippers? Don't tell me the coffee machine is broken again. No, ma'am, Dr. Flippers gulped. Remember our big scaly friends? The ones we have a mutual defense pact with? They're, surfacing. All of them. Simultaneously. The room fell silent. Even Supreme Overlord Zix, still on the view screen, seemed to sense that something monumental was happening. Admiral Bubbles took a deep breath. Well, folks, looks like today's going to be one for the history books. Zizix, honey, you might want to stick around for this. I have a feeling things are about to get interesting. As if on cue, the facility's external cameras activated, showing live feeds from across the world's oceans. The sight was both terrifying and awe-inspiring. In the Pacific, a creature that could only be described as a living mountain breached the surface, water cascading off its coral-encrusted back. Its eyes, each the size of a football field, blinked slowly as they adjusted to the sunlight for the first time in millennia. The Atlantic churned and boiled as a mass of tentacles, each large enough to ensnare an aircraft carrier, rose from the depths. At its center, a pulsating orb glowed with otherworldly light, casting eerie shadows across the waves. And in the Indian Ocean, a being that seemed to be made of pure energy and stardust coalesced into a vaguely humanoid shape, towering miles above the sea's surface. All around the world, humans stopped what they were doing and stared in disbelief at the impossible sights unfolding before them. Social media exploded with hashtags like Seamonster Invasion and Cthulhu was right, while conspiracy theorists everywhere simultaneously gloated and panicked. Back in the control room, Admiral Bubbles watched the scenes unfold with a mix of pride and trepidation. Well, I guess the cat's out of the bag now. Or should I say, the Leviathan's out of the ocean. Dr. Flippers groaned at the pun, but was too awestruck to complain further. On the view screen, Supreme Overlord Zizix's tentacles were flailing so wildly they had tied themselves into knots. What are those things, he sputtered. Admiral Bubbles grinned. Those, my dear Zix, are Earth's true defenders. The cosmic Leviathans, guardians of our world since before humanity took its first steps. And it looks like they've decided it's time for a proper introduction. As if in response to her words, one of the creatures, the tentacled mass in the Atlantic, began to emit a series of low-frequency vibrations. To everyone's surprise, these vibrations resolved themselves into words, not just in English, but in every language on Earth simultaneously. People of Earth. The voice rumbled, causing windows to rattle worldwide, and visitors from the stars. We are the Ancient Ones, guardians of this world. For eons we have watched and protected, guiding the course of life from the shadows. But now, as your civilization stands on the brink of joining the galactic community, we can remain hidden no longer. The energy being in the Indian Ocean chimed in, its voice like crystalline wind chimes. We have seen your struggles, your triumphs, your capacity for both great good and terrible destruction. And we have judged you worthy of not just our protection, but our partnership. The mountain-like creature in the Pacific spoke next, its voice a deep, earthy rumble. To the Galactic Federation, know this Earth is under our protection. But more than that, Earth is now ready to take its place among the stars with us by their side. In the control room, jaws dropped. Even Admiral Bubbles, who prided herself on being unflappable, looked stunned. Well, she said after a moment, I guess that saves us the trouble of coming up with more cover stories. Supreme Overlord Zizix, still on the view screen, seemed to have short-circuited. His eye stalks were spinning in different directions, and a small trickle of drool escaped from what was probably his mouth. I think we need to reconvene the High Council, he mumbled before the transmission cut out. As the implications of what had just happened began to sink in, the control room erupted into a flurry of activity. Phones rang off the hook, emails flooded in, and at least 3 different world leaders were on hold, all demanding to speak to Admiral Bubbles. In the midst of the chaos, Dr. Flippers sidled up to the Admiral. So, what do we do now, he asked, his voice barely audible above the din. Admiral Bubbles took a deep breath, straightened her coffee-stained uniform, and smiled. Now, Dr. Flippers, now we do what humanity does best. We adapt, we negotiate, and we find a way to turn this insane situation to our advantage. She turned to address the room at large. Listen up, people. I want draft treaties with our new Leviathan allies on my desk in an hour. Someone get the UN on the line, tell them we're going to need a bigger assembly hall. And somebody please get me a fresh cup of coffee. We've got a lot of work to do. As the staff scrambled to carry out her orders, Admiral Bubbles allowed herself a moment of reflection. The world as they knew it had changed forever. Humanity was about to step onto the galactic stage with eldritch abominations from the deep as their backup dancers. It was going to be one hell of a show. In the days and weeks that followed, Earth experienced a transformation unlike anything in its history. The revelation of the cosmic leviathans and the existence of the Galactic Federation sparked a new age of unity and purpose among humanity. Nations that had been at each other's throats for centuries suddenly found common ground in the face of these monumental changes. The United Nations was restructured into the Terran Alliance, with Admiral Bubbles, much to her chagrin, elected as its first president. The Leviathans, for their part, proved to be invaluable allies. They shared knowledge of the cosmos that made Earth's most advanced scientific theories look like kindergarten finger paintings. Faster than light travel, clean energy, and even limited control over gravity itself became realities within a matter of years. As for the Galactic Federation, they eventually got over their initial shock and extended a formal invitation for Earth to join. The negotiations were interesting, to say the least. Picture, if you will, a conference room on a neutral space station. On one side, Supreme Overlord Zezix and a delegation of various alien dignitaries, each trying their best not to look terrified. On the other side, President Admiral Bubbles. She insisted on keeping both titles, and a mixed group of human diplomats and scientists. And in the corner, casually defying the laws of physics and probably sanity, a shimmering holographic representation of one of Earth's leviathans, looking for all the world like a cosmic squid, had a baby with a supernatural light show. Right then, Admiral Bubbles began, slapping her hands on the table with enough force to make several alien delegates jump. Let's get down to brass tacks, shall we? We want in on this whole Galactic Federation shindig, but we've got some conditions. Zezix, who had been nervously eyeing the Leviathan hologram, snapped his attention back to Bubbles. See conditions. But we're the ones offering you membership. Shouldn't we be setting the terms? Bubbles grinned, a predatory gleam in her eye. Oh, honey, I think we're well past that, don't you? After all, we're the ones with the giant space squids and the ability to turn entire oceans into no-go zones for your fleets. One of the human scientists, Dr. Flippers, newly promoted to head of xenobiology, chimed in. Besides, we come bearing gifts. Our Leviathan friends have some pretty nifty tech they're willing to share. How does FTL travel without all that messy mucking about in hyperspace sound? The alien delegates burst into excited chatter, tentacles and antennae waving wildly. Zezix looked like he was developing a migraine, which was impressive for a species that didn't technically have a brain in the conventional sense. Fine, he sighed, deflating slightly. What are your conditions? Admiral Bubbles' grin widened. Oh, nothing too crazy. We want a seat on the High Council, obviously. And we're going to need you to update all your official documents to list Earth's oceans as totally normal. Nothing to see here. Definitely no monster zones. Is that really necessary? Zix asked, bewildered. Oh, absolutely, Bubbles nodded solemnly. We've got a reputation to uphold now. Can't have everyone knowing about our secret weapons, can we? A little mystery keeps things interesting. And so, after several more rounds of negotiations, and one incident involving an overeager Exlorbaxian diplomat, a misunderstood Earth idiom, and a very confused potted plant, Earth officially joined the Galactic Federation. The years that followed were a golden age for humanity. With the Leviathan's knowledge and the resources of the Federation at their disposal, humans spread across the stars like wildfire. They established colonies, made scientific breakthroughs, and generally caused delightful chaos wherever they went. Earth itself became something of a galactic tourist attraction. Aliens from across the universe flocked to see the mysterious oceans that had repelled the Federation's invasion. The fact that the waters remained stubbornly monster-free during their visits only added to the intrigue. Of course, there were some bumps along the way. Like the time a group of thrill-seeking Zorlak teenagers tried to go deep-sea diving in the Mariana Trench, only to be gently but firmly escorted back to the surface by what they described as a tentacle the size of a small moon. The incident sparked a new extreme sport among the galaxy's youth called Leviathan baiting, much to the exasperation of both human and alien authorities, or the diplomatic crisis that ensued when a human delegation, attending a formal dinner on their Fezik's homeworld, casually mentioned that calamari was a popular dish on Earth. It took weeks of careful negotiations and a galaxy-wide ban on cephalopod-based cuisine to smooth things over. But through it all, the alliance between humans, Leviathans, and the wider galactic community held strong. Earth's oceans remained a source of endless fascination and speculation for the rest of the universe, with new rumors and theories popping up faster than social media influencers at a UFO sighting. Some said the Leviathans were actually the sentient dreams of sleeping elder gods. Others insisted they were the last survivors of a long-lost aquatic civilization that had once ruled the galaxy. A particularly popular conspiracy theory claimed that humans themselves were just elaborate biomechs piloted by tiny ocean creatures, and that the Leviathans were their giant cousins. Through it all, Admiral Bubbles or President Admiral Bubbles, or Supreme Earth Representative Bubbles, depending on who you asked, just smiled and deflected questions with the skill of a politician who'd had years of practice hiding city-sized monsters in plain sight. And late at night, when the paperwork was done and the latest interstellar crisis had been averted, she would sometimes take a quiet moment to herself. She'd brew a cup of coffee, still her lifeline, after all these years, walk down to a secluded beach, and watch the waves rolling in under the light of alien stars. And if sometimes, just sometimes, she caught a glimpse of something impossibly large moving beneath the surface, well, that was just between her and the sea. As for the rest of the galaxy, they learned to give Earth's oceans a wide berth. Not out of fear, but out of respect. For in those depths lurked not just monsters, but guardians, allies, and a reminder that the universe was far stranger and more wonderful than anyone had ever imagined. And so, dear readers, the next time you stand at the edge of the ocean, watching the waves crash against the shore, take a moment to wonder. What secrets might be hiding in those depths? What ancient eyes might be watching from below? And just how lucky are we to live on a world that can still surprise us? After all, in a universe full of aliens, faster than light travel, and galactic federations, sometimes the greatest mysteries are still the ones in our own backyard. Or should we say, our own back reef. I'll see myself out.